I love playing with my scraps, and here I have sorted a pile of light colored scraps and a pile of bright colored scraps. And what I'm going to do is just randomly sew the lights together to make approximately 10-inch squares, and I'm going to sew the bright ones together to make roughly 10-inch squares. In order to sew them together, I usually just do this kind of strip piecing thing. I start with some of the smaller pieces, and I sew two of those together. Then I press them, make sure I have one straight edge, and then I turn them sideways and sew them together with something else, so they become a little bit bigger blocks. And then when I get another section, I'll sew it on the side down here. And eventually I will get random blocks that are about 10 inches in size. The secret, I think, is always making sure that you have at least one straight edge. So I press it and have one straight edge to sew the new strip to. That's very important. So when I get a pile of blocks, dark ones and light ones, the next thing I would do with these is I would take one of the light ones, one of the dark ones, place them one on top of the other, like that, right side up. Then take my long ruler and make a diagonal cut. Now, when you do this, if you're going to make a whole quilt doing this process, make sure that your diagonal cut runs the same direction each time. Don't make some of them with the diagonal cut this way and some with the diagonal cut that way, or some with the diagonal cut that way. Choose a direction and stick to it for the entire process. This quilt, I'm making my diagonal cut that way, and I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I cut it. I'll take my ruler off, and what I do is take this one, I just turn it over, and I take this one, turn it over, and I will sew, there we go. I will sew each of the corresponding pieces. I've just turned them over, and now they match where I cut, and I will sew that row, and I will sew that row, and eventually I will have something that I can square off. And half of it is light, half of it is dark or bright, and I can make a quilt out of that, and it will look great. So what I do with these then is just sew those, and I have been taking, in the raw form, roughly 10 inches. After I slice it and sew them together, I make squares that are roughly 9.5 inches. And once they are sewed together, I'm putting these in sort of a, I don't know if you could see, zigzag fashion. So up on the wall here, I've got a wide at the top, narrow at the bottom. Then the next one I put sideways, wide at one end, narrow at this end. The next one is wide and narrow at the bottom. So it forms kind of a zigzag pattern. But that is going to be the side, and when it's on the bid, this part is going to be the top. So the zigzag Don't think I can do it with my finger. But the zigzag goes from the top to the side, and I like it better that way. But depending on how you slice your block in the first place, if you're going to slice it in a different diagonal fashion, you will have slightly different pattern. So my recommendation is you take a couple pieces of paper, colored paper, plain paper, whatever, and slice a couple of them and play with it before you decide how you're going to slice your blocks, because it will make a totally different looking zigzag. But it's a really good way to use up a lot of scrappy fabric, and it really doesn't take very much time to sew these things together. So there's a tip for you for using up some of those pieces that are odd shaped, odd sizes, odd colors. You can have any combination you want to have to put into a quilt such as this. It's a very good utilitarian quilt when it's done. I hope you enjoy this technique. It's a lot of fun.